Okay, for those who are joining this live stream, we've already been doing some live stream software design reviews today. This is another one. This one's about software engineering tools, and we are doing in the late stages of documenting. The first thing we're going to do is finish our remote run process, which are doing SSH-like operations. And then we will be turning to system processes, which is doing PS-like operations. So I hope and believe that what we have to do at the beginning here is really, really straightforward. So I think we rewrote these already, right? Remote authorization caching. Did we document that?
Yeah, we made a page for it. Maybe we should open it just to make sure we finished.
Looks reasonable to me. Don't know why it's not showing up as a link here. Okay, so the main point here is just that these things are now implemented. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. I've added all of these changes. Some of them, a few pieces might not have made it into the last prototype build. But
okay, so I have to look at this in a prototype build. Is that right?
Well, yeah, you can change or two, like some of the extra options to remote run process haven't made it in there yet.
Okay, but so remote connect, for example, I should be able to just do remote connect. And if I had a Wolfram script, it will work using...
I think remote connect works in 11.3. Is that right?
Yeah.
You don't need xkernel for just doing any sort of remote connect and remote run process.
Okay. So if I say remote run process here, so I'm going to a host, and my host is pi, and my process will be, my thing will be ls. And then what I should get, magnificent. Great.
You can make a data set out of it.
Why is it asking me to log in again?
Well, that's what the option is for, right? If you want to do the remote authorization caching to true, one time it'll cache it.
But it
I see.
Still expects.
Now, wait a minute. Why is it going log in again? Why is it asking me to log in again?
It shouldn't be.
Oh, you know what's happening? You know what's happening? The data set is dynamic.
Oh, okay.
That's not good.
We can take a look at that.
Well, that was very weird. What just happened there? So if I say remote authorization caching.
Is it in this build?
Apparently not.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. But that's the point of that.
But that will cache it. That will cache that authorization, and then you're good to go after that. So yeah, data set is a bad idea. Then in this, we should take that out. It's going to keep messing you up.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's going to. This is really messing this up. Okay. And what should we do with this in general? I mean, look. I wonder whether this remote login screen should have a thing that allows you to remember me. Has a remember me button on it. And is there any way for us to get that flow to work? So this is an authentication dialog, but what we could do is somehow set that. Go ahead, tell me what you...
The concern was, in order to get a good remember me button there, we would want to save the username and password,
in a keychain.
I imagine, in a keychain, exactly. But some of the keychain stuff,
well, at least we can say remember for this session. Remember me for this session.
Okay.
That would work if we can get the flow to work correctly from that back to things. So do we need to?
What about just having a checkbox that basically sets that option to true when it's,
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That's different.
Okay.
Garrett. Like it would just basically, force that option to true, right? And then, then you're good to go.
Question. Sorry, did we knit these, and do we need to do this knitting right now?
We knitted a little bit. I don't think we finished.
What page is done? Let me check here. It's
Oh yeah, we did do some of this, right? Remote. Okay.
I mean, this was really close to done in the last meeting, so.
Yeah, I think this is really.
You just wanted to see it one more time, and because you.
Okay, well, so I'm seeing it one more time. So does this point to Cloud Connect, by the way? No, why doesn't it can't point to Cloud Connect? That seems like a very relevant thing for it to point to. And much more relevant than Socket Connect, which I think is an obscure. Because
other functions that end in connect. Let's see. Service Connect.
Yes, that's another one that's relevant. Why is Socket Connect even? I don't think run through is in the slightest bit relevant here. I think remote run is relevant. Remote run process. Cloud Connect. Service Connect and Socket Connect. Now, what happened to the remote file copy?
That was in development. I don't think that will be ready for 11.3, just because I guess it was suggested to finish that more recently.
Okay.
But it's coming along pretty well. I had some.
And what's the design?
The design, I don't think there's anything I can point to, but the design was to have it as kind of like an up value for copy file, so that you could have.
But how do you represent the remote hosts?
It would be kind of the file wrapper, and then it would be the machine name, and then colon the file.
So we're then generalizing the file object to have something that has also the
kind of a
location there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, then I think we're done with this. Great.
Okay. We'll just do finishing touches and.
Okay. So the next thing we're on is some system processes, right?
And we have Ian, but not Nicholas is not here yet. He probably joins in a few minutes. We're 3 minutes early.
Yep.
To the hour.
Okay. So what are we doing here? We're looking at documentation, or we're looking at some more design here?
Ian, are you?
I think
I don't know how far y'all got in the last meeting. Sorry, I really don't know. There's both documentation as well as design for some of these arguments.
Okay. Okay, fine. By the way, one thing I realized is that we didn't document for network packet capture stuff. We didn't document any of the properties there.
Oh, you mean the columns in the data set?
Yep. Yep. I don't know whether we need to.
Another thing that we didn't document that occurred to me this morning is the form of network packet recording that says record for this number of packets, not this number of time.
Oh, how do we specify that?
That's an excellent question that I don't think we have adequately figured out yet.
Well, let's look at that for a second, okay?
Okay.
So that was, and also, what did you think about my network packet traffic during?
So yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. I think that a lot of people, that's like the natural thing that a lot of people want to use. The one kind of problem I have with its existence is that we can't filter just like packets that come into and out of the kernel. And so.
Oh no, I understand. I mean, that's why I said in the documentation for it that.
Yeah.
I mean, what it's like is like timing, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, it's a more convenient timing.
Right, and timing has all kinds of other junk going on as well. Why didn't this work? I put that in this morning. What is going on here? what is going on. I'm sure I put that in today. And I've updated this machine multiple times here.
Let me see if it's in CVS. What was the function called again? Network
packet traffic during. I had a network packet capture during, which I obsoleted.
Okay, it's not in CVS, so.
Ugh. Okay, let me do the following then. That means, let's see, that means it's on.
Maybe on your local drive somewhere.
It's on my other machine. Hold on a second. Let me go to that other machine so that I don't mess this up, and I will send it to myself on this machine, and then commit it here. Okay, because otherwise we're going to get that. Otherwise, that machine. Actually, I'm not sure what's going to happen because that machine. Somebody needs to deal with this. So I think we need to get hold of Roger. And it's on TreeMac. And it is, what will have happened is that it is local to TreeMac, but it has not been pushed back. But if I push back from TreeMac, well, I guess it will only, what will it do? If I haven't updated a file on TreeMac, it won't push the update, will it? Can we get hold of Roger and ask him?
Eric or Carla, can you guys?
I'll get him.
Well, I think we have Nicholas here now. So
okay. Well, we can get to system process, but I'm concerned about what happened to that file. And I agree with you that we need some mechanism for saying capture a certain number of packets in network packet recording, which suggests that we might want to use units for the time, but we haven't discussed forcing units for the time. I mean, maybe it's more natural to capture a certain number of packets in network packet recording.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that the sysadmin folks said would be useful to say, just give me the next 1,000 packets or something like that.
Right. Well, okay. So let's try and loop back to that in this meeting. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's go back to system processes then. So this is running in the main 11.3 branch. Is that true?
It's still an X kernel. It should be in. I mean, the pull requests have been open. It'll be merged soon, but it's still an X kernel for now.
Hello.
Okay, hold on. Okay, this should be the Xkernel version. Yes. Okay, so what are we doing here? So if I just say system processes, I'm going to get a whole pile of stuff, right?
Right, you'll get all that.
So now we've also got, what have we got here? System process data, right?
Right, that's the association formatted one.
Right, which I think, by the way, in this documentation should be the first thing we mention because it's and what is processes? Processes is processes that we've launched from within process link, right?
Right.
Okay, and if I say kill process for one of these process objects, does it work?
Yes, it will kill it as long as it has permission.
Okay, I better not try that. Who knows what it's going to kill here? Okay.
You can try mapping it over your process objects and see what happens.
I think one thing that is definitively going to happen is this whole web conference, live stream, everything's going to go down.
Yeah.
Well, Roger just joined.
Yeah.
Maybe he can help.
No, not relevant to this. Hey, Roger.
Yes.
This is on TreeMac. I
Yeah.
made some edits to some files this morning in the documentation tree, and I think I must have forgotten to push them back. There should be a thing called network packet traffic during, and possibly one other one. Could you check that out and try and figure out how to push them back into the tree without editing, without modifying any other files, because those are the only ones I will have changed. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Network packet traffic during. Just let us know when you've done that, because then we'd like to look at those files.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
The,
We should compute the median length of function names over time and see what's happening with that.
So somebody did that. It's increasing.
yes,
like,
it's increasing.
Like greatly increasing.
We have become more defensive in our function naming.
The other interesting plot, I think, would be number of functions ending in data over time.
Yes, that would be interesting because there weren't any back in the day. Okay, this is looking nice. So this is now, okay, so we've got PID, PPID, memory, start time. Did we say we were going to put start time there? I thought we were putting start time. Did we agree to put start time in that position?
I don't entirely remember. I wasn't sure. I just got the action items today, so
okay. Does anybody else know whether that was supposed to be moved?
I don't think we mentioned moving it anywhere.
Yeah, that one we did not mention.
Okay. Well, I think this is probably fine as it is right now. Okay. All right. So this is looking good. So now your processes gives a list of your processes running. It's a list of your processes that are running on your computer system.
yes.
Okay. Gives a list of all processes that are running, if we're going to use the parallel construction, on your computer system. Okay, so if I look here, that will be length of, well, that's also, okay, so system process, okay. Whereas if I say system process data of all, I'll get some much bigger mess. How can I mean, if I'm not root, do I still get to see? No, I still only get to see only my processes, right?
It's platform dependent. On Windows, you can see more or less all processes that are unelevated. By default, the system process data all tries to get as many processes as the OS will give it. On Linux, that is most every process. On Mac, that's only your processes. It's trying to get everything it can.
Okay, all right, so fine. So then what we need to say here is system processes of all, right?
Right.
Let's see. Assorted by PID by default. Okay, fine. System processes of all. Let's see. When we have these lists of platforms, which order do we usually list them in, guys? Does anybody remember? If you look up like some of the machine ID stuff, it probably will have them listed in some order.
I'll check, but I think it's Windows first still.
Maybe we should change that. The world has changed, I'm afraid. Sorry. So sad. Okay, so system process data we're also documenting, right? So we need to defuturize that.
Right.
List of. Well, this isn't right. I mean, gives.
Yeah, it's consistently done Windows first everywhere. So changing that, that's gonna.
Okay, we probably should change it. I mean, it's historically interesting, but it probably. I mean, I don't really know what the order should be. We could do it alphabetically by system name. What about that?
It's reversing the order, more or less.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Most of our customers are still Windows customers. Just so you know, it's a good, significant majority.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, surprising.
Based on download data, it's much bigger than Mac. We just happen to be Mac persons a lot in the company.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, good for Microsoft. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's gives a data set of information about processes that are running on your computer system, right? So data set, about your processes actually, one way to say it about processes that you are running on your computer system.
That sounds better.
List of processes that you are running on your computer system. We also have to say processes are represented by process object. Not what it's that's the correct thing, right? By
Yep.
process object constructs. Each process is represented by process object. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, process object better refer back to. Why is it referring to input stream and so on? Anybody know?
Because with the ones you start from your current session, you can read and write to them.
Okay. Okay, so then this should refer to system processes here. Processes should refer to well, that's interesting. The analogous thing here, rather inelegantly, would be okay. And this now wants to probably say, what does process status work then on those? Process status would work on the system processes.
No. Process status, if I recall, returns if it's running or not, and system processes, you will only see the ones that are running.
I see. Well, let's take a look at that. Okay, so your claim is that if I look at this for system processes, well, let's just go here. Let's say take system processes, comma 5, for example, and then I say process status of those. It doesn't work at all.
No.
Interesting. Okay, so let's look at what process status claims that it does. Because that's a little bit surprising that oh, silly bug. Okay, gives the current status of the external process represented by the process object proc. Okay, why doesn't this work at all?
It returns if it's running or it's not, and since you're querying by process IDs, you can only get running processes.
Oh,
I think it should work. It should just always return running.
Yeah,
that's what I think too.
I think we can make that change.
Okay, now what is, so if I say, why is this returning process object of 0? That's an incredibly, is that what?
That's the old way.
That's what they used to look like.
Okay, but so that documentation should be updated, is that correct?
Yeah. We're waiting out on
nicer.
icon. So once we get that icon, we'll add it.
This is fine without an icon. I think this is fine without an icon. I do not think this needs an icon. It has a great big thing that says process object right there. It's entertaining to have an icon, but if the icon gives no information, I don't see the point of having an icon. I mean, if the icon could give the actual icon for that process, that would be cool.
I think we tried that before. It's pretty difficult to do that in a consistent way.
Then I don't think we should do anything. I think we should have no icon. I don't think any icon can do us any good here. I think it's going to be, I mean, look, what's the point? We have 200 processes and they all have the same icon. Who cares? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I just sent you the icon that Design made for us. We can also just not use that at all, but if you're curious, that's what Design.
Wait, you sent it in mail or chat or what?
Chat. Oh, sorry, Rocket Chat.
Ah, okay. Oh, somebody on the live stream answered the question about, I got to look at their results about the data functions. Let's just see what they got here. And let's see, data introduced. This is arguably in the category of, by the way, that bug with the blue, with the thing staying blue is really, oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's amusing. Okay.
What was that when just you added
That
like
was,
80 of them?
That was probably V10.
Yes, I'm guessing. And that was probably when a bunch of this Wolfram Alpha stuff got put in the language. But it's interesting, there were a few steps up there. This is pre-Wolfram Alpha, right? These were some data functions added before Wolfram Alpha. And I am curious what got added around. Okay, well, that's interesting. That's cute. Okay, let's go back to this. So
just to confirm, icon or no icon?
Well, I'm not seeing the, you sent me the icon. I have no idea how you sent me. Okay, I see how you sent me the icon. That icon is not interesting, if I might say so. I mean, I just think that icon is like a who cares icon. Does that really add anything?
I mean, not really, no.
Then let's skip the
Just
icon.
Consistent with the task object.
Yeah, just objects to this point have mostly had icons, so it was just for consistency.
I don't think we want it. I think we're going to see so many of these together. Let's keep this one on the shelf. Maybe we'll need it later. But I think much more interesting would be, is there any way from the operating system to retrieve whatever the thing would show in the doc, for example?
Yes, I think so. However, you run into the issue of like all the the system daemons don't exactly have doc icons.
No, but what does whatever the query that for a doc icon return for a system daemon?
That's a good question. I've never tried it.
Why don't we try it and see what happens?
And one of the problems with getting the icons back is the amount of time it takes. Because if you're converting, 200-300 icons to something, to our images in Wolfram language, that takes, several seconds, maybe even up to 10.
Well, how do you know? I
mean, I tried about a year ago.
Oh, doing this particular thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, fair enough. But it might be interesting to have a thing where if we had, how do we get information about a process? So we've got, given a process object, the process object has queries that you can make of it, right? Or maybe not. Interesting. So, I mean, we could imagine having, just like process status is a function that gives you, status of the process.
I think
sorry, the person on the live stream, I can never pronounce the SG Huisman.
That's Sander Huisman.
Oh, okay. The points out that polyhedron data was the first data function. I think he's right. Yeah.
I'm also told we have Flip Phillips who's watching with his entire class.
Oh, okay. So, interesting. Well, hi to them. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's see, what were we saying? We're saying process object right now, the only thing we can do is ask the status of the process, right? But the possibility would be that we could ask what other attributes of a process should we be able to get? Clearly we can get attributes of a process because we're seeing them right here in the In
You
other words,
can-
how would we get on for an individual process? How do I get the system process data for an individual process?
you query it like an association.
The actual process object.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, but then we just haven't documented that, or did we document that subsequently?
I think that would be a new thing.
Okay, but it works right now, is what you're telling me. So,
Yeah.
so if I go here and I say I take one of these process objects, like this guy here for the login window, and I just go there, and if I say, for example, if I say that of data set, does it work?
Not of data set.
Does it give properties? Can I get a properties list there?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. Okay, so we probably want to treat it just like a data object. So like, just like we can say, you know, what's a good example? I don't know, tungsten or something. And we can say, you know, that has various standardized properties there. That's great. So program, are we calling it program, or that's what we call it in the actual data set? So it's not program name, it's just program, right?
Right. And it's also how it's called inside the object's little box.
Okay, so we need documentation for all these things here in the process object. So we need to say, yeah, in fact, we had started documentation here. Can represent both the process that has, okay, so then in here, we need to go ahead and document, what's this? Memory in use and time used. Is that supposed to work?
I don't think so. I've never heard of those.
I don't think so.
Should that work? Do you think it's a good idea, or do we think it's a bad idea?
Would it be a property? I mean, can we see the memory for that object? Yeah, there's memory, right? So it's a shortcut. It's a right memory use of object is just that property.
Well, the point is that memory in use, yeah, of a process is, what on earth is this doing? Well, this is what I get for running the prototype build. It's probably got some corrupted cache now. Okay, but memory in use, so the normal memory in use doesn't take any arguments, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that would be a nice generalization of memory in use, to be able to give it an arbitrary, oh, look, fascinating. Okay, that is an incredibly oh, well, look at that disgustingly antiquated object there.
Oh, wow.
It's, those dashes come from when it used to be on in terminal output. So
I took a screenshot. I'll send it to
you. Yeah, we should get that fixed up. And I don't even know why the link object there. I mean, I don't know why we're not using modern UUIDs for link objects. That seems like something we should do someday. It's not critical. That's certainly not going to fail the way it is right now. But okay, so I claim that memory in use of a process would be a good thing to support. Okay, so let's say memory in use, the process object of, so let's try to support those things. And then we can say gives properties of a running external process, because none of those properties are going to work for a, well.
No, they do work.
Okay.
Well, as long as it's running, yes, but it also works for your sub processes too. Not.
What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry. I mean for the processes you create via start process and the like, it still works.
Oh, I see.
Not just.
I see. Even if they're not running, gives properties of external processes. Possible properties include, and now we're going to have some table of these things. And the table that we're going to have presumably should be in the same order that we give it in the actual system process data. And by the way, here we need to put in, I guess we should include system process data as well. And there, and let's take a look. Okay, so this is going to be our list from system process data. So let's say, if we just take the first row there, and then we say keys of that, then that should give us, what is that doing? What on earth is that doing? Oh, come on.
Oh boy.
I don't know what that's doing. I mean, this must be a problem with formatting here for.
I've seen that too in a different situation today. In today's build,
Okay, so it's an issue with today's build. So okay, so we can fill these out. I'm not going to fill them all out here, but we've got this process ID, and by the way, that should probably refer, this process object thing should refer to $process ID, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
And $process ID should refer to this whole jazz. So that should refer to, that's got parent process ID. So I guess we should refer to system processes here. Let's refer to them at the end. So an interesting thing that we don't have is a $process, which gives the currently running process, right?
I think there's a $running processes, but it's internal to process link because its format's been changing, which is not exactly.
Okay, but I mean, but what I'm suggesting is $process. Really, there's a question of what is this kernel process that's running. So what I've got is $process ID, right? But I've got to go and spelunk in the process list to get in system processes to find out properties of my process.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the properties of my process are actually known independent because every one of these things probably, yeah, every one of those things is mapped to something for my particular process. So maybe this is silly. I mean, it's like you can have the thing kill itself by getting $process. You can say an alternative to quit would be kill process $process ID.
Mm-hmm.
Does that work, by the way? Does kill process, does it do it by process ID?
No, it does it by process object.
Which is probably safer and better.
So you just don't pass a random integer into it and get problems.
Yeah, I think I agree that that's asking for trouble. We're hearing somebody's typing, by the way.
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna, for this list here, we need these, and we also need data set of all properties and values. And we need properties, list of available properties. Okay, so let's go back now. I notice with link object doesn't refer to, we're still hearing typing, by the way. So can somebody fill these in, the rest of these?
Yeah, we can fill in the rest of that list at another time.
Our node just implemented memory in use for a process object. Yes, okay, we can do that.
I'll put that code in my build.
Well, run it by someone who knows how to program in Wolfram language, but that's the simplistic how I would do it.
Right. Okay. I wish that the chat thing copied properly. It's just a silly feature. Okay, well then let's document. Okay, we better, if we can get that in, let's get it in, and I'll write a tentative version of this. Okay. No, because that's going to require changing the memory in use and time used documentation also. So let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so I'm going to just, for the sake of having something here, let me just paste this in, and obviously we're going to use that. I'll put that as a tentative there. And you can use that to copy this in. Okay. All right, that's process object. Now, what do we have to loop back to here? We were looking at, go ahead, let's look at system process again for just a moment. Let's just see what results we're getting. So this is, we're looking at the documentation of system processes, right? And system process data. Okay, so system processes whose names or paths contain the string pattern pat, fine. Process for which the property has value. Okay, so we got to list which properties we're talking about here. And we also, are we going to support something where we say system process data of all comma and then a list of properties and including only those properties? Do you see what I'm saying? In the output.
Yes, that's how the other forms are implemented. They by default use the all form.
Which other forms?
So of the ones that take patterns or rules, they operate on the full data set, not the user data set.
Right. Okay, so you're saying that there is, if I were to document here, system process data of spec, comma, props, includes only includes in the data set only the properties. Is that right?
Oh, that's what you want, only certain properties?
Well, is that what did you have in mind?
What I had in mind was the property filters, like filtering on on the full set of processes with those filters, not the user one, which is already how it works. But now I understand what you mean. Return a data set with only those columns, right?
Yes, that's what I mean. Right. I mean, is that useful? I think it might be useful if what you want to do is get, I mean, depending on how long it takes to get all this stuff. I'm not sure.
It doesn't take long. It's usually under a quarter second, even on a heavily loaded system.
If you were using this for some kind of system optimization thing, you might want to call it quite often.
True.
And they said only the properties.
The thing is, though, when it gets the properties, it fetches all of them
I
at
understand
once.
that. I understand. So maybe this is a silly idea. So let's futurize that.
I think
right now.
I think that one works better if you just use the data set tools.
Yeah, and right, and take it out. Okay, fair enough. Should we just ignore this? I'm going to leave that as a futurized possibility. Okay. Gives a data set of information about processes that you are running on your computer system. Gives information about all processes. Okay. Gives information about processes whose names or paths. You know, I'd be so much faster at this if there wasn't discrimination against left-handed people in keyboards. Only somebody who's left-handed will understand that comment. Nobody else is.
I'm left-handed, but I didn't understand the comment. What's the problem with the mouse?
If you use a left mouse on Node, then you can't type Command C, Command V, and so on.
Oh, well, that's why I switched to it. I'm right-handed for mouse. I'm left-handed in general, but
wow, we worked together for an awful lot of years. I didn't know that. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
So I guess I'm ambidextrous if I use my mouse on the right hand.
Yeah, I'm right-handed for motor, non-fine motor stuff, like. But anyway, that was when Yeah, that was the sign that Bill Gates was no longer really paying attention to Microsoft products, was when they stopped working great for left-handed people. That meant he didn't try them before they went out or something. Since he happens to be left-handed. Okay, let's see. So, okay, fine. So we have to say processes are sorted by PID. That's irrelevant. I mean, that is true, but that's more relevant for the list, right? That we're getting in
system process data.
No, in system processes.
Oh yeah, system, yeah.
Okay, so now gives different processes on different computer systems.
Yes.
Process only for the current user. Only for the current user. All processes for all users.
Yeah.
All processes for all users. Does that not include system processes of some kind?
That includes all processes except processes that are kernel threads, which you can do nothing to for good reason.
But for Linux, there are kernel threads that are treated as processes.
Yes, they have PIDs just like normal processes, and I work very carefully to filter them out because you cannot touch them in the slightest.
So wait a minute. What does that mean? I mean, you mean they're not interesting, or what do you mean by?
You can't interact with them because of the permissions required. They belong to the kernel. Yeah.
But so in the Windows, for example, that's not how it works. Is that correct?
No, in Windows, it's all processes that aren't elevated, more or less.
Okay. But so explain to me these kernel threads. And I mean, if I said, gosh, I want to see what my kernel is doing, would I want to see, if I do PS, if I go to a Linux machine and I do PS,
you might see them. I'm not sure. I think it depends on what user you're running as, but I found it difficult to query them because it wanted you to be root. So,
I see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I just do this, it'll be, so in fact, what I should be able to do using our beautiful modern technology is I should be able to say, here, I've got a Linux machine, so I should be able to say remote run process of, is this right? Or is this don't do something totally crazy? Remote run process of my Linux machine, comma this, and then it will ask me to log in. Okay, and so you're telling me that in all of this stuff,
the K worker and SC and SCSI stuff, yeah, that's kernel stuff. You can really only get the name for it and not much else. So
does it even have a meaning to things like memory in use, given that it's a kernel thread?
Not really. You can't get more information than really the name and PID.
What on earth is this?
It's the kernel having an error.
Great. Okay, that's encouraging. That's my file server. Okay. Should I worry about this?
You could, irrelevant to that, you could try running semantic import string on that. I got a nice data set when I ran it. However, you have all these errors, so I don't know if that'll work, but.
Okay.
Association, so you might need to get the standard output key.
Oh yeah, right. Well, maybe it'll be smart enough. Who knows? That would be. Oh, it isn't a string, but maybe it maps itself correctly over an association. If it doesn't, it probably should. Well, did something there. Okay. Well, anyway. It seems very confused. Okay, okay, but so I'm coming back to this question about kernel threads, and I don't know whether we have anybody else on this call who is a aficionado of such things, but it just seems like I mean, being able to get that seems useful, even if one can't get all the properties for it.
Yeah. I mean, it could be tried, but at least for me, on most of the time, trying to open their status file that gives you the info on them just resulted in, EPERM, no permission errors. So.
Okay, well, why don't we say all non-kernel processes for all
Yeah.
users? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's just a mess.
So, I mean, conceivably, we could use, we've got another symbol, full, which is even bigger than all, and which we might be able to use if we manage to figure out how to get. I'll just make a note here. I'll just do that and futurize that note. Okay, processes are sorted by PID by default. Well, there's no by default. We just say system processes returns processes sorted by PID, right? Because that's what it's always going to do. Okay, but now we have to define okay, so in system processes of prop arrow val, the following properties can be used.
Isn't this the same list that
it is the same
getting
list.
put? Yeah.
Yep. Okay, wait a minute. What we could say here, where was that system? Where did
process
I
object? That's
yes,
where I believe
right.
you put it.
Okay. But then what we want to do, okay, so if we allow that third, we're not allowing this. So let's just get rid of that. I think that's just not, that's history. Let's just get rid of that. The following properties can be used. Properties can be used include properties that can be used include. Okay, now here's a question. What about supporting things like greater than in that value? So for example, if I want to find things for which the time is greater than blah, blah, blah. That seems useful to me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely useful and takes a lot of the cruft out of it with having to construct a pattern. I'm not sure how to implement it, but I'd be willing to try.
Okay, so I mean that pattern is used for like for example in entity stores, that is a very common pattern. So for example, the entity element density arrow take largest of 5 should give us the 5 chemical elements with the largest density. Osmium, yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know neptunium was so. Anyway, okay. I didn't know rhenium was so high up there. Okay, never mind.
So take largest and greater than.
Yes. Well, I mean, greater than. So there's a whole lexicon of these things. So there's a bunch of them, and I don't know exactly how that support works inside the entity framework. But there's there's also things like nearest to and so on. Well, there's greater than, take largest. That does seem significantly useful. Things like take largest, because what take largest would do is give you the largest by CPU time and so on.
Yeah, largest by memory, largest by whatever.
Right. Yeah, that seems like a highly useful pattern. So let's just type what that would look like. That would be system processes of memory, well, of time used. This is very nice, actually. Take largest 5. That's really quite nice.
Yeah, it's very clear. doesn't obfuscate its intent in the slightest.
Right. Okay, so now properties that can be used include, okay, so then we're going to have that same list from this page, which maybe you guys can put in. And it'll be in that same order there. Well, let's just, what the heck? Oh, no, I'm going to run out of time here. Okay, so we got to put these in. Great. The only thing for path, there may be, there are some contains things as well that are relevant for if you're doing it for the path. So for example, here, I think there's a contains, isn't there a string contains thing or something that one can use?
String contains queue, that's what it does by default. If you just say, path yields whatever, it returns,
Okay.
the process.
So I think that can, right. So I mean, that is also something that could go on the right-hand side there. Okay, let's just put in that table here. Okay, so that's going to be that table. Okay, let's look at system process. Where is it? System process data. Okay, so this is, we now need to copy this over. So this is not, the fact that it's sorted by ID is sort of interesting, but not totally relevant.
Yeah. Lets you know the default sort, which I think for a data set is kind of nice to know.
Wouldn't a better default sort be by time?
Yeah.
In fact, might not that be the case for both of these?
I mean, generally, the older a process it is, the lower its ID. So I'd say they correlate. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, maybe it should be sorted with highest time first.
Okay. So should I add time used as a property then? So that can be sorted on.
Yes, but we have that, don't we? Oh, user time. Why isn't that? User time is time used, isn't it?
Yeah, it's time used in user space, correct?
Okay, so that's okay. So user time, that's fine. But the question is, should we sort by user time? Should we? What do other people think about that? Should we sort these processes in? I mean, to me, that's the most useful thing. If I saw system process data, I want to know what's taking time on my machine. Actually, what I really want to know is the percent of the CPU that's currently being used by, the process that's currently using the largest part of my CPU right now.
I should be able to get that.
How?
How? Okay, 1 second. I'm fairly sure it's in the header I was using on least on Mac. I'll be back in a second with it. It's
okay.
It's a property you can query.
Well, I mean, it must be the activity monitor uses something like that. So if that's the case, then we've got another property here, and then that's another thing that should be in system process data, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so, as long as it's portable.
I question whether or not that's portable, because I think some activity monitors measure that over time. So it's...
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
They'll query it every second or so and just calculate that out.
Right. Okay. So, well, I mean, or we could, yeah, well, what do you think? I think it'd be really nice to sort by largest CPU fraction, and we could call it CPU fraction and just give it as a number between 0 and 1. We seem to have some, okay, there you go. Okay. So, if we succeed in getting that, let's sort by decreasing. So then we would say return processes sorted by decreasing CPU fraction.
Yeah.
If we get that. Let's put that in as a tentative line if we can get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would be in this data set similarly. Okay, so this is system process data. Let's see. System process data gives a data set with the following keys for each process. And that is now that same list of properties.
Yeah. Would it be worth just saying to refer to the process object page for them?
I hate that because you just have to click one more time.
Okay,
I think
that's
we
fair.
should do the work rather than every user who has to click on another page. Okay, so in system process data, that properties that can be used, any key, any of the keys associated with each process can be used. Prop can be okay. Okay, so now if we manage to do this, we'll get this. In the data set, returned by system process data, processes are sorted by PID. Okay, what happens to the sub-process? Okay, so then I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes here. I think we are pretty close to done here. Does anybody think there are any major design issues left in this?
I think there's stuff that could be changed later to kind of reduce redundancy in functions like process information, but I don't think anything super pressing for system.
What is process information? Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Process? What is process information? Is that yet another one of these things? Wait a minute, what is that? Did we not look at that?
No, it's listed right there on the link, but
it was another one of those older functions built. Around the old process objects.
Wait a minute, so why does process information? Now I'm confused. So process information, I'm really confused here, and I think we just did something stupid. So right now, we said the sub value, given a process object, asking for the sub value of something or other is equivalent then to process information with a second argument.
Yeah.
I think we should deprecate process information.
I agree. I think querying it like an association is a lot simpler, especially in maps, instead of having to put it through process information.
Yeah, but then the question then is, that would mean that we might want to get, if you give a list of process objects to system process data, maybe then it should just give you a data set of the results for just those processes.
Oh, that's...
That would give one the same behavior as yeah, that seems a useful thing, because then you can get that same. Now the other question is whether you can extract the process object. So for example, from here, yeah, here's an issue. So given that I see this and I filter this, and let's say I find, okay, there's the process, I want to kill it. How do I actually go from the system process data to a killable process object?
There's...
The easiest way would be to type in the program name. So system processes.
Yeah, but there may be multiple. The easiest way might be to select. So if I look at process object, why wouldn't process object just allow me to give a PID?
Because the old way process object used to be structured is that it took the internal ID of the spawned process.
Oh, how grotesque.
As an integer. That's what the zero's been. That's the 0th process subprocess.
Well, I mean, clearly one way to do that is a little bit hacky would be to say process object to PID arrow, whatever.
That's what it's doing internally. It's tracking if it's internal and specifying a UID or PID.
I see.
So if you just look at full form of a process object, you'll know what I mean.
Okay. So if I take this thing here.
Yeah.
Oops, what on earth is that? Well, I obviously, something went wrong here. Okay. Actually, I could just say input form, probably. Maybe not. Yeah. Manage process, PID. Okay, nice.
Yeah. It keeps some of the extra process properties there because they're static, and it caches them so that it doesn't have to query them from C code every time you ask for stuff that's pretty static.
Okay.
But yeah, you could just top out manage process equals false, PID equals 111, and you'd get the same rendering and everything.
Right. Okay. But this question of how do you go from the system process data to the actual process object? That's what I'm concerned about. So your point is that I could actually say process object to PID, and that would work.
No.
Ugh. It's really a shame that we've had this. Well, let me just think about that for a second. If I do start process, what is it now returning? Is it now returning one of these?
Yeah, it's returning one of those with manage process to true.
Okay, well then what's the compatibility issue? I mean, unless somebody, I can't imagine somebody has code. I mean, can we imagine that somebody has code that says start process and they're actually looking at they actually think they know what integer it's going to be? Because
I hope not, but
because that's going to vary through a session, right?
Right. I think if people are doing that, it should be considered, you're
just wrong.
Private, bits of the,
Yeah, it's just wrong, I think. So I think process object of a process ID should work.
Okay.
And okay, so process object can be created by for processes created by this is only true for processes started by start process. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I think we should say, in here, I might futurize this for right now, but process object represents the running process, external process with PID on your computer system.
Yeah. That's not a hard one. I think that one can get done. It's
Okay, fine. I'll just put it in then.
yeah.
I have to go to the airport in about 2 minutes here, so I think we have to wrap up. Is there anything else that we know of? It'd be nice to look at this one more time in a few days, but I think we're in pretty good shape here. Anybody any last points?
So early next week, one more
I'm
review.
thinking, yeah.
Okay.
And I think I agree with you that process information, we should look at deprecating process information.
Yeah, it seems kind of moot now. So
Right. It seems like it's a bad way to do it. And another thing we need to check is that the documentation that we have not confused documentation for what am I trying to say? For the things that are started by start process and things that are not. We need to make sure that everything correctly reads through all those various functions that make it clear whether it's going to work on a non-managed process or a managed process only. This is nice, very cool functionality. Let me I'm going to push it back into I'll push back my changes here, and unfortunately I have to go. So see everybody in due course.
bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.